almost out loud, I just remember saying, God, I thought this is where you wanted me, and I thought I was being faithful. As soon as those thoughts came out, he said, you're not here for your promotion. You're here for my purpose. We should be witnessing every day. And if you have to use words, go ahead. So often we speak it, but we're not living it. The mountaintops are beautiful, but they're usually short-lived. They're pinpointed. If you can visualize, it's the journey going up and down the mountains. I do believe with all my heart that God has a plan and a purpose. And it could be not necessarily a job. It could be looking for a spouse. Or it could be looking for moving from one city to another.
What would you say to the person who maybe is saying, well, I don't know what my purpose is. It's not overtly clear to me, or as Mariah said earlier, maybe it's down the road. What would you say to the person who's searching for that?
Well, that's probably one of the tougher questions.
Well, welcome to the Even You podcast, where we empower ordinary people to say yes to extraordinary purpose. My name is Scott, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mariah.
Thanks, Scott. We have the privilege of being here today with Ricky Dickson, the former president and CEO of Bluebell Ice Cream.
Ricky, thanks for being here.
Be here. Yeah, the former is it's reality setting in. It's been about 3 months, but it seems like but still has a nice little ring to it. Means you don't set an alarm clock in the morning. But
that's awesome.
Outside of that,
nice.
You're still wearing the suit though, so you still got to dress up.
Yeah, I did get rid of the tie, which is a big step.
That's awesome.
Did you wear a tie for all
43 years? Maybe except the last week.
Okay.
I thought, if I'm going to shed the tie, let's do it before we go out.
That's awesome.
So, it was just ingrained. Ties were a big deal.
Yeah.
And they slowly, and of course, COVID killed pretty much all ties.
Yeah.
I think me and my CFO were the only two at Bluebell that had a tie on. So.
That's awesome.
Anyway, you just never know who's going to show up.
Well, I don't know about you, Mariah, but I have lots of Bluebell questions. One of mine is, do you have a favorite flavor? Over 43 years?
Absolutely. Whatever we're making today or whatever we made. No. Seriously, I always would say
the new one.
Yeah, whatever the new one is. Homemade vanilla would be what I would call my Hall of Fame flavor.
Yeah.
It's just so iconic in nature.
It is.
But outside of that, salted caramel brownie today.
Okay.
Now, it can change, but man, my wife and I are just pounding that one.
Yeah. And
eat a little, then you go walk, and then you come back and eat a little.
And do you and your wife have officially a lifetime supply of Bluebell at the house? I mean, that's got to be
we probably,
part of the retirement package.
It wasn't part of the package, which would have been very smart.
Yeah.
But I would say, given maybe 15 half gallons is the norm. We have our own Bluebell freezer, like you see in a convenience store.
No.
Yes.
This is what we came to hear.
It's over. You got to make sure you have a good variety. And when I say that, it's mainly the grandkids.
Yeah.
They know right where to go.
Coolest grandparents ever.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That would have been nice. We had friends over this past weekend, and after dinner, my husband looked at me and he was like, well, do we have dessert? And I was like, no, did you buy any? And he was like, well, we're going to go to the store. And him and our other friend went to the store, came back with 3 pints of Bluebell ice cream, only Bluebell.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them were different variations of cookies and cream.
Oh, really?
He got the new cookies and cream cheesecake, cookies and cone, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Loved that one.
Yeah.
Apparently that's the favorite.
Yeah.
And then cookie two-step.
Cookie two-step's a good one.
Yeah. Justin has 2 loves in the world, golden retrievers and Bluebell. I really don't think anything tops it. I would like to think I get close, but I don't know.
That's awesome.
Depends what kind of day he's had.
Yeah.
True.
You move way up.
That's
He's going to get you out there.
Yeah.
Well, I did hear in preparing for this that you came from 3 generations of dentists, actually, in your family. I think it's hilarious that even given that you went and then became president and CEO of probably one of the biggest indulgent sweet treats ever. Tell us about how Ricky Dickson ended up at Bluebell and what that 43 career looked like.
You're right. 3 generations, great-grandfather, grandfather, and dad. And yet, Dad, early on, Dad actually had a real heart for ministry. And yet he was a very, very good dentist. I've yet to have a cavity in my life. I just hit 65.
Wow.
We were pretty strict on making sure that we brush and do all those things. But I think I had his genes too. I don't think he ever had a cavity. But I chased a girl to Baylor. She had I tell people she had a passion for Baylor. I had a passion for her. We got there and we broke up.
Yeah.
And so, it definitely got me to Baylor. And at Baylor, one of my semesters, we had to follow a company in a consumer relation class and really how they relate to the consumer. And I went back and called my dad and said, "I've got this project. What do you think?" And he said, "I'm actually reading an article before you called, and let me start the article over." And it was about that little ice cream company down in Brenham, Texas. And I thought, well, who doesn't like ice cream?
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I went down and interviewed, with the vice president of the company. During the interview, it was about 2 hours that he gave me, which I thought was just unheard of.
Sure.
That's good.
The president sticks his head in and says, who's this guy? What are you doing? He comes in, sits down, and I thought, this is really a cool place.
Yeah.
And so with that, when I got close to starting to really, what I'm going to do in my life type questions, I thought I'm going to go back and interview with that ice cream company. I was looking at public relations or advertising. I wrote for the Baylor paper and also worked for an advertising agency. And I thought, well, I'm going to try ice cream. And if that doesn't work, I'll fall back on the other. And so fortunately, they interviewed me and I filled out the application. And about a month later, they called and said, "We're just kicking things off in Dallas. Would you like to join our team?" And I said, boy, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I had a whole, really the fall semester I still had to go through to finish my degree. But as soon as I got through, a couple of weeks later, I jumped on board.
That's awesome.
43 plus years ago.
What was your first role at Bluebell? Because obviously you didn't start at President's fresh out of college.
Killed that interview. Yeah.
Unbelievable interview.
Yeah.
You're the man. I could dip really well. No. I started as what they call a territory manager here in Mesquite. Military Parkway. And so Bluebell has what they call branches. It's like a distribution center. We make everything at one of our 3 plants. Then we transport it to one of 67 now branch locations from Phoenix all the way to Miami up to Richmond, Virginia. So about 67 different locations that we make it and ship it. From there, at each branch location is a little different, but you can kind of figure about a 100-mile circle. And they take care of all the customers in that area. And so as a territory manager, you handle one of those areas. So at that time, Mesquite, my area was from Central Expressway up to, I think, Arapahoe, all the way to Bridgeport, Decatur, I-30.
Wow.
And that was like 4 routes. So you were on the road a lot. So that's how I started, is what they call a territory manager.
Wow. And then we were talking earlier about how iconic the brand of Bluebell is. It's just almost an identity for Texans, Americans. I mean, to our audience who's watching from around the world, different countries, probably doesn't even understand. But think of a cultural identity piece or a flavor or a tasting that you like, and that's Bluebell. Certainly for Texans, certainly for Americans. What was it like 43 years ago? Is that change, or how did that evolve where Bluebell became that staple?
But, great question. And really, I think it was in Texas that because of the slow growth, which for some, patience is a big deal if it takes, we went into Houston in 1960, Austin in 64, but Dallas 78.
Oh, wow.
So you see those big gaps of time. But the thought process is we're going to go into the market and hopefully, they'll buy it. And can you keep up with the demand once you go to a market of that size? And when we entered Dallas in 78, because it wasn't in Dallas, the word had reached Dallas, but it wasn't there yet. So anytime you can't have what you want, you have a stronger demand. And so consumer demand really became our best friend. And it just would take us all across the map. I mean, literally, we were in Beaumont, but Lake Charles doesn't have Bluebell. Now, all of a sudden, Baton Rouge wants Bluebell. And it was the major stores. So you're back then a Skaggs, Alpha Beta, Bruno's in Louisiana. These were iconic, big, large chain stores that said, well, you've got to come. Yeah. And so, okay, but you didn't want to grow at such a fast pace that you outpaced production, or you outpaced I won't say the iconicness, but you wanted to make sure you kept the quality. Yeah. So when you did try Bluebell Homemade Vanilla for the first time, it did everything you were hoping it would do. So when I started, it was just starting to take off. And 3 years later, I moved into the San Antonio market, where we were just opening that market. and Bluebell had exploded in Dallas Fort Worth, and I think that started the I would say the iconicness.
Yeah.
We've been around since 1907.
Wow.
But it was really the 60s to the 80s that started pouring new concrete for the foundation of what you describe as the iconic brand. And it just pulled us across. The only market that we went into that wasn't really a market that was calling us was Kansas City. And then Phoenix came later, where we didn't have that. We had consumer demand, but not the kind that has opened the other kind of doors.
Yeah.
Of course, that's when you can't hide now. We're out there.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
We rank in the top 3, I think, in the country.
That's awesome.
We're at about 30% of stores selling.
Wow.
So it's it's fun.
That's fun.
You know, I tell people, and I get in trouble for saying this, but people don't fall in love with green beans or toothpaste, but for some reason they fall in love with ice cream.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, you just got to have whatever that flavor is. It's like your best friend at the end of the day, whether you've had a great day or a horrible day.
Yeah.
You know that it's waiting for you.
And the quart size is just enough. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot, so you really got a lot of it, but it's not too much. I mean, it's great. That's a big thing for me.
Pace yourself at the same time. Yeah.
It's good.
I love it.
It's good. It's all in there. And so, tell us about Ricky Dickson, the believer in Christ. I mean, I think a lot of people may not know that, or when they think of Bluebell, that the president and CEO is a Christian. And I'm just curious more about that story, what that looked like for you.
Absolutely, and really. You try to do the best you can living it and everything that you do. And hopefully the 43 plus years, we fail every day. I fail every day. But your heart is to go out and live your faith. So often that we speak it, but we're not living it. And I loved it. I can't remember who said it, but they said we should be witnessing every day. And if you have to use words, go ahead. And, that really stuck to me because especially in the positions, people are watching.
Yeah.
I mean, people you never dream are watching the moves and what you say and what you do, where you go, what you brag about, jokes you tell. That defines who you really are. And so I was taught that early on by my parents. And again, I failed many times. But the heart and soul of it is I believe without a doubt that we're here with a purpose. That God has placed us here with a purpose. And through my career, there's a chapter in the book that talks about where I was asked to move to Oklahoma and the potential of a new position, promotion, and got there, and it just got really quiet. And I thought, well, okay, what's going on? And so when the day came, the phone call comes through to say, we want to meet with you. I'm thinking, this is it. Okay. I mean, why I moved away from home. And it was just the opposite. Walked into the room and it got really quiet. And there was about a page and a half, handwritten notes by my immediate manager or boss. I hate the word boss, by the way, so that's why I always stumble. Wonderful Christian man, but it was things that I wasn't doing that I should be, or things I should be that I was doing that I shouldn't be. And not that I was really out of whack, but I was. I had left the center, and I had drifted, and I had gotten caught up with the title. And so I go back to my hotel room, and I'm thinking, what's just happened? I moved up here. I shouldn't, probably have even come. And so almost out loud, I just remember saying, God, why? You asked me to come here. I thought this is where you wanted me, and I thought I was being faithful. And as soon as those thoughts came out, he said, you're not here for your promotion. You're here for my purpose. And it still to this day gets the hair on my arms sticking up, because what I heard him saying was, look, I've got a purpose for you, but don't get so caught up on a title that you miss what I'm doing. This is about me. It's not about you. And if you live your life for my glory, the love that comes back is just unbelievable. And he loves me even in spite of that, And so I determined at that point, I either get mad, go back, look for another job, although it'd be hard to leave ice cream, or embrace it. And so I did. And within, 7, 8 years, I'm running the plant in Broken Arrow. I'm now a sales guy with a marketing journalism degree running an ice cream plant in Broken Arrow. But to land the plane on this question, which I think is a great question, is I truly believe God has a purpose and a season sometimes for the purpose. But my prayer always is that a wrap around that is, God, not only don't let me miss your purpose, but put the passion in me to do whatever that job is, whatever that job is. So if you want me sleeving ice cream, then put that passion, and I want to be the best I can at it, and then live that. Don't just say it, but live that. And so I've tried to use that philosophy as I've moved in different positions. I believe in empathy and not just sympathy. I want to understand what the employee is going through. But the most through all this is I want to reflect Christ in everything that I do, every decision that I made. And it's, in a corporate world where you're, really owned, I don't want to say owned, but the company's owned by, whether it be individuals, I think there's a really right way of doing it to just live it. And then when those that want to hear about it, then share it.
Yeah.
There's things that you can do that when you don't beat them over the head.
Yeah.
But when they see you're genuine, then really that comes to life. And believe me, we went through some hard times as a company, and people go through hard times individually. And so to me, when they come to you, I'm not a counselor, but at the same time, I want to understand where you're at, because it's more than just ice cream. It really is. It's what you're going through, and how do you do that successfully, especially running a company. So I gave you a really long answer.
No, that's awesome. Lots of good stuff.
My faith is everything.
Yeah.
And the trials that we've been through, and that's really the concept of the book, is how can you find peace in the middle of the storm when you're going through the tough times. The mountaintops are beautiful, but they're usually short-lived. They're pinpointed. And if you can visualize, it's the journey going up and down the mountains.
Yeah.
And, you hit the valley, and it's painful.
Yeah.
You just get back up and start climbing again. So anyway.
I'm curious, you said something really valuable that I think we don't hear enough. The idea that, God, wherever you're calling me, give me the passion to do that. I think sometimes we can look at what's next and assume that we will have passion to do it, and that's almost our guiding compass. But I think that prayer is very specific and very powerful, and I think very helpful for a lot of people. And so I'm curious for you, what did that look like? Where did you need to pray for passion to kind of step forward in what God was calling you? And maybe where was there passion already instilled, if there was?
Right. Well, I think the passion, fortunately, was still the ice cream.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still working for this iconic company, unbelievable foundation, and really to add one more P to the purpose, patience. I always go back to, passion. I go to patience because patience is the third component. That I wasn't being patient. I wasn't, God, you moved me to Oklahoma. Can I give me the title? And it's like, but you've got this all out of whack. I am molding you. And not for your benefit, and not for my benefit, but also for yours. So when you are ready for my purpose, and sometimes it takes years to get ready for the purpose in which He has.
Yeah.
But the passion part, I think, if I were to have walked away, I think I would have been walking away from what He had willed for me to do.
Yeah.
The reason why I was there. I'll be honest, and I've said this, to be president of this company is, pinch me, because I honestly, I used Bubba Watson's comment, the golfer, that when he won the Masters, they said, what's it feel like? And he said, I never got this far in my dreams.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
And honestly, with the Cruzy family, which is just an unbelievable, iconic family running the company for almost 100 years, that moment in that hotel room helped put it back in perspective to keep me from one day I'm going to, now, don't get me wrong, I had dreams one day, but it didn't consume me. And if, God, this isn't where you want me, I'm going to trust you that wherever it is that you do have me, that I do have that passion. And so, but I think the fact that I stayed with Bluebell kept the excitement, even though it may have been not on my timeline.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that tension of dreaming, but also trying to live in God's will and listen to His voice and His leading is a really hard tension to live in.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a really sweet place to live in, of holding that loosely. I think that's amazing.
Mark Batterson is, as you may know the name, up in Washington, D.C. as a pastor, and I love his writings. I quote him pretty much every time. But he has, in a book that I read, that really, I love what you just said on dreaming, because I'm a big dreamer. But he says, the day you stop dreaming is the day you stop, that you start dying. the day you start living is the day you find a dream worth dying for. So I love the dream. Don't get me wrong. I think, and again, but I believe God put that in me.
Yeah.
Put that in me. Put whatever it is that you have me designed for. Give me that passion within it, and then let me go.
Yeah.
Let me just, this book is really an offshoot of that one statement.
Yes.
He wrote a book called Chase the Lion, and it's about it's an Old Testament character that chases a lion into a den on a snowy day. Now, who chases a lion? And yet his whole thing was dream big and then go for it. And anyway, I didn't mean to get off, but
no, it's great.
I think dreaming is definitely part of it. So I don't want to say that you just wait till God says, okay, here's your assignment, and go do it.
Right.
That's part of the process of especially if you're an underdog. My English teacher saw me here with a book.
Yeah.
No way. I remember that kid, he couldn't spell cat. Is this with a C or is it with a K? I get that confused.
I want to hear more about the book. It's called One Scoop at a Time.
Yes.
Did you always know you wanted to write a book? I know you just retired and the book just came out. Was that always the plan?
No, absolutely. I wanted to write a book. I thought that especially becoming president, again, you want to not miss any opportunity of, again, what God is doing.
Yeah.
Even when I retired, I wanted to make sure, God, is this what you, have I done what you've called me to do, even after 43 years? And there's part of you hit 65, let's go play. Grandkids and vacations and all that. But I don't think anywhere in Scripture God says, well, okay, you can now go play. So I call it refiring instead of retiring. Get this fire going back up. I did receive a phone call from an agency that said, would you be willing, or do you want to write a book? And everything just started falling into place. The piece that came again on that, it's a tough assignment. I never dreamed there was so much of writing a book. I thought you wrote it, you handed it off, they edit.
Right.
Hope it works out. Can't wait for it to come in the mail, and you go from there. But it is a great seed in the ground, or a great tool to be able to share my faith. I've been able to talk about Christ so much through it because people want to know. And yet it's one of those conversational things that can be hard to break through to start. And yet when they look at this, it's fear to faith. Faith. Talk about what's that mean to you? I had a lady the other day, we were doing a book signing in Oklahoma, and she said, this couldn't have come at a better time because I don't have any right now. I need to hear what that means.
Yeah.
And so,
you talk about you're a great storyteller, and what I love is you talk not just the peaks but the valleys. And you've mentioned that a couple of times. Just what does your faith look like in the midst of some of the challenging times of your career? What does that look like? I mean, you mentioned earlier 2015, Bluebell went through a hard time.
Right.
In position of leadership, how did your faith play in when you were faced with challenges like that?
Yeah, I probably look at that one window of time out of the 43 years was probably obviously the toughest as a company. And I think the thing that made it so difficult was seeing it on the employees' faces, seeing it on the consumers' faces, and the gravity of what was happening. And then how do you grab it, own it, fix it, and get back to making memories instead of having to deal with this. Faith at that point for me was huge. We, in fact, we shared verses. We shared, everything from Jesus calling passages to someone would come in and just say, look at what I read today. And it would be so pinpoint for the day. I go back to Mark 4, pretty much Mark 4, when the disciples get on the boat and they go out and Jesus goes to the front to go to sleep, and then the waves come. And they're taking on water, and it's like, this is not good. And they finally go and wake him up, and you get a little faith. I mean, we know the story, and he calms the sea. I think the magnitude of that scripture in that story, and the reason why it speaks so heavily to me is the fact that Christ can actually sleep during the middle of that storm, knowing, he's the creator of the world. And yet, if he can sleep, then I can sleep next to him because he has us in control. I don't understand it. I don't get it. But sometimes it takes weeks, months, years to get to the point where you finally let go and let God. But when you do, it's that peace that passes all understanding in Philippians. And so when 15 happened, or any trial, and there'll be more. We will go through more, I promise.
Yeah.
It's just we're in a broken world, and we're watching that come unfold
Sure.
right now. But when it comes, the more you do go through these type of trials, you run back to those anchor verses. You run back to, okay, how did I get through that so I can get through this? And it's amazing how much quicker the peace that passes all understanding can come. And knowing that he loves you more than I can comprehend, I just anchor there. So, and I think that the company now, today, I mean, we still test everything there is to test. We don't sell anything until it goes through what it goes through. You could operate probably in the production floor. I mean, it's just, we took it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
Because I think where we started.
Sure.
The people have the passion. We say we want to consistently meet the expectation that drives that passion. And so, no question, the hard times strengthen you.
Yeah.
At the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that takes the breath away when you hear the news of a diagnosis or a friend that's been in a wreck or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, everyone's watching the leader. Yeah. Everyone's watching your posture, your decisions, your attitude. And I'm imagine in a hard season like that, you said the employees' faces are probably reeling with, what do we do here?
Yeah.
And imagine eyes are on you to say, well, how was Ricky processing this? And I wonder the ways that your faith and you're rooted in the Word, you're living out the fruits of the Spirit, that impacted those around you. Do you have any stories of that, or ways that you feel like God used you to just be a little bit of a source of strength?
And again, in a kind of maybe an unusual way, I really haven't thought about it until you've asked this question, but I was at that time vice president of sales and marketing, so I was pretty much on the I don't say we have two different sides, but you produce the product, you get it to the distribution centers, and then you hand it off, kind of like a relay. And so I started walking production floor for the first time since I had been in production back running the Broken Arrow facility. In Brenham, it's just such a large facility, close to 1,000 employees.
Wow.
4 different production rooms. Yeah, it's a really large facility. And so you have so much to do in your own world to get up and go and jump into that world.
Yeah.
But I thought it was critical to be seen, just to be seen. And that helped me, I think, segue into the position of president 2 years later, because they started asking, well, who's that guy? And you'll laugh, but he's got a tie on. So who is that?
What's he doing down here on the floor?
Yeah. I was like, okay, he must be somebody, but who is
He's
he?
lost, yeah.
And as you probably can tell, I love people. I'll talk to anybody for as long as they'll stand there, And so that, I think, opened up a lot of doors to segue in. And then through that, the faith comes through. The question comes through. And you can, when you're going through trials, everybody's more open to, stay on your knees, pray. We're going to get through this. God's going to open the doors to get us through this. But if he doesn't, he's still faithful.
Yeah.
He's still faithful. And so that probably was the most, because I didn't really stop doing that. But then when I became president, I made it a regular part of my routine.
Yeah, I love you said just be seen and let the faith follow. I'm reminded of a quote from the founder of East West, John Mazel, who says, hey, 90% of missions is just showing up. Just showing up and being there, because God has something in store before and even in the hearts after, but just showing up and being available to be used by God, to be a relationship, to be a connection. It's just, he said 9% just show up. Yeah, and so I hear that in your story.
Well, that's good. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think of the idea that we are just a vessel to be used by him. And if the vessel isn't there, then what's he going to use?
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing. Yeah.
No, and you don't know. I mean, that's what's like. This one person reads this book, and I'll never know. But maybe one day in heaven, I'm walking through, and somebody stops and says, "Thanks for writing that book," because it led. But I love the vessel, because that's what we are.
Yeah,
it's not about me.
Absolutely.
It's all about Christ in me, and I don't want anybody or anything to ever get in the way of that.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So I'm impressed by the fact that you were at the same company for 43 years.
Yeah.
That has floored me. I think it's probably because in the generation that I'm from, Gen Z, that is like unheard of.
Yeah, 4 years is a lot. Yeah.
We're not there yet. But talk to us a little bit about that. Was that something that you ever, did you get bored? Did you ever want to change? Did you just put your head down and say, this is where God has asked me to serve, and so I'm going to serve here? That's just a large, it's your whole life.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I love the question. And even in that moment in that hotel room, I really seriously didn't think about, I'm gonna bail ship on this. No, I felt that I really did feel like from the paper to starting with a company, and again, we come from maybe different denominations within the company. It's we do pray. We'll pray before our board meetings. We pray before our annual meetings. But it's more of I go back to that living it and not just talking it.
Yeah.
And again, I'll talk to anybody anytime, but I want to be there, and they see something in me that maybe we want to lead to that. Bluebell offered that, I guess I should say, in a sense that it was just exciting. I don't know, from the flavors and the creating of flavors, and then you hear the stories, and being more so in the sales. So you're in the field, so people would come up to you all the time, and it's like you've created a flavor for them personally, and then you've taken it away. You took away my favorite, and I'm thinking that flavor. You're the one that bought the flavor.
You're the only one.
We had a few that didn't really ever get off the ground, but. No, I think that maybe just within me that I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And so therefore, I would just continue to I really, honestly, when I entered the plant in Oklahoma in Broken Arrow, I thought I'd be running the plant the rest of my career. Okay. And I embraced that. I said, we're going to make the best ice cream out of this plant. It was harder because in sales, you have sales goals. So next year, what do you want to sell more and get more space and get this in production? What do you want me to make for you? So it's more of it's harder to maybe set goals and or motivate because it's a very repetitive environment. So we shifted gears to take the mindset, whatever you just made, that's the one you're taking home. Because when you make something you're going to take home, you're going to make sure you do it right. Yeah. And so you kind of embrace that kind of philosophy. But I know it's unusual. I think if I remember, I quoted this recently, but 25% of our employees have been there longer than 20 years.
Wow.
So if you come on board and you stay for any length of time, then usually that's where you feel like that's you want to be. Yeah. So whether it's God saying this is where you want to be. Right. Yeah. It's just that kind of an iconic company. Yeah. And yet others, that's why I call it seasonal, because I tell every group of new management teams that come through, 10 years from now, not everybody will be sitting here, and that's okay. Get where you believe you're supposed to be. Get where you believe that God would want you to be. You spend a lot of your time wherever that is. And so I'm glad that it was in an ice cream company.
Yeah. And what I heard you say earlier was, I think Bluebell prays for their ice cream. So that's why it's so good. I think I heard you say that. So
Well, Greek for milk and honey is homemade vanilla. I don't know if
that's right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. All comes back. No wonder.
I'm going to get in trouble.
So you said earlier, everyone's created for a purpose. Yeah. We're talking about on the Even You podcast, just this reality that, hey, we're convicted that ordinary people, even us, that we're uniquely wired and uniquely positioned by God here and now, just to play a role in His kingdom. And even at East West, we send missionaries all over the world. And yes, there's those who are called to do that and play that role. But yet there's also people listening to this podcast who are, God has in a season right now, working a job or living on a certain street or in a certain school. And yet we believe that God has a unique purpose for them right there and then. I'm curious, just looking back on where God's taken you and the different doors that have opened, what would you say to the person who maybe is saying, well, I don't know what my purpose is. It's not overtly clear to me, or as Mariah said earlier, maybe it's down the road. What would you say to the person who's searching for that?
Yeah, no, and again, I think that was me in college. As everybody was landing on, I'm going to be a CPA or I'm going to be a doctor, whatever it is, oil and gas, or, and I'm like, well, I have no idea. She left me. I'm kidding. But I think that patience sometimes, again, when you can't see, allow Him the time to get where he's molding you. And so it's you've got to be patient. And in that process, but at the same time, pray in a way that when he does open the door, that you recognize that it's his doing of that door coming open. And I'm not critical of anybody that's moved from one company to another company by any means,
Sure.
because that could be, again, what God's having, the experience. In fact, the Cruzies that took the position before I was, when they came out of college, one was an attorney, one was a CPA. These are the sons of the presidents before.
Yeah.
And they were told, you need to go work in the real world before, if you want to come back, you can, but you need to go find another job somewhere. And so one became a CPA, I want to say in Houston, and one became an attorney in Brenham, and then eventually came back to the company. So I do believe with all my heart that God has a plan and a purpose. And I think our choices also kind of dictate that. So if we're not necessarily lining up where he wants us and we make certain choices, okay, he's got to have to figure out, how do I get you back over here from that standpoint. But I think he's such a patient and loving God that he'll do that.
Yeah.
But no, that's probably one of the tougher questions from the standpoint that it's not, the magic 8-ball where, where do I go and you turn it over. But laying that out, and it could be not necessarily a job. It could be looking for a spouse, or it could be looking for moving from one city to another.
Yep.
Your daily walk continually builds the relationship with your Father. So the more time you spend, the clearer that you hear him. Because I think, like anyone, the more time you spend, you recognize his voice that much, quicker.
Yeah.
And so I just say, just start spending time, read his word, and continue to pray.
Yeah.
And just trust in the patient part of the 3 Ps.
Yeah. That's super encouraging. Obviously, you have a family.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how did you balance work and faith and family, and maybe what did you do well? What was challenging?
Probably there were seasons that I was better at that than others, especially when I took the role of president. I think it's critical, and I think because of maybe decisions that I was always up early and going to work or coming home late, you feel that pull, that loyalty to make sure, because you don't want that to suffer. But if one's suffering, or if one's not suffering, the other one is.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think it's just a great question. If I could rewind, I probably would focus more on family. And I hear that. I heard that growing up.
Yeah.
That you can't ever take that back or ever get that back. You want to be at every softball game or every t-ball game. I'm enjoying as a grandparent more of that now.
Yeah,
than
that's
ever
awesome.
before. But I think that you want to keep that balance for sure. So I think really the heart of the question is, if God really opened the door, or one scoop at a time, to this role of being president, if that was really the case, then I think I was doing the things that I needed or should have been doing. At the same time, if someone says, I don't really think I need to move to this new town because of a position, or better yet, there's something that's pulling from a family, I'm so much more I go back to that word empathy. I can so much more relate. Man, I remember where I was, and go do that, go be there, because you're going to have that moment in time again. You're not going to get it back. And so I don't think, hopefully the kids don't regret too much of it, but you can get caught up in it real easy. And so, regrets, I don't want to say regrets, but I wasn't probably the best at keeping that balanced. But I was mindful of it. And, you try to smother them the best you can when you are with them.
Yeah. I know anytime someone writes a book on the back end of a career, it's filled with so many stories and memories and fond things that will live on. What are some of the highlights for you in there that you're so glad are captured that generations to come can read about?
I hope that you capture, obviously, my passion for Christ. No question. If that doesn't come through, I need to write another book.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, and then hope that there is hope and a promise that he's there. And so somewhat of a roadmap to get from fear to faith in that process. If I take and look over on the secular side, the fact that ice cream is so magical.
Yeah.
I love the stories from people, and I tried to put some in there to give a good flavor, no pun intended, of just the impact that ice cream has had, and in experiencing that with them. When you have a family show up from all over, 40 to 50 people from all over the country to celebrate their father who's passed away, who loved lemon ice cream.
Really?
And they're all wearing yellow shirts, and they want you to come outside, and they're standing on the steps right in front of the executive building, and they have a song they want to sing to you about how great the ice cream is and how it impacted their father.
Yeah.
And so I hope that, that in itself jumps off the pages.
Yeah.
Because that's
so much more than just ice cream.
It's so much more than ice cream. And I like to say it's making memories.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes you back to a place of somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of it is if it was a bad place or a tough place in time or a wonderful place in time, it's still, like I said earlier, like a friend kind of waiting on you. I don't think this, book has captured maybe just a small segment of all that could be told.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I like to talk and ramble. So I could see another one coming out from it. But anyway.
That's awesome.
I feel like the passion and joy just for life and the Lord and ice cream, it just like oozes from you.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is the kindness of God, that we get these tiny little moments, whether it be ice cream, whether it be a job or hiking in the mountains, like whatever it is, he allows us these moments to just like sit in pure joy with him. And I think it is such a sweet thing, no pun intended.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Like I was working on
you sprinkled in there. That was good.
I like it. You sprinkled one in. I caught that one.
Hey, come on. I'm ready. Locked and loaded.
Yeah,
fine.
But I just think that like that ice cream is that for you. And I think from that, God used you in so many incredible ways. And you were a really faithful vessel and still are. Sorry, you're very much so still being used for him. And I love that the book captures that, and the way that you talk about the book captures that, where to someone it might just be ice cream, but to someone else it's a beautiful story of the way that the Lord cares and is personal and allows us to enjoy and partake in just the sweetness of life with him.
And for a brand that is already so personable and relatable, and it brings it more to life because it humanizes the faces behind the label. And so it's really special that you've told those stories and God's used you in really unique ways over a 43-year career at Bluebell. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Well, Ricky, thanks for being here on the Even You podcast. We're thankful to have your stories and have you share with us. Next time, bring some ice cream.
Yes. Sorry
some secret flavors, some unreleased.
We started out with good intentions. The 100-degree heat, we panicked.
Oh, it would melt.
We started eating as quick as we could.
Bring a straw. I'll drink it. Yeah, that's great.
We owe you one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Ricky Dickson. Scott, what were some of your takeaways?
I need to try salted caramel brownie, apparently. New flavor.
Vanilla.
Also, I loved when Ricky just said he went to the production floor to be seen as a leader, but then let his faith follow from there and impact others. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's powerful. I feel like I loved the idea that passion is something that we can pray for, that it isn't something that has to already be there in order to move forward.
Yeah.
But it's something that the Lord can grow inside each of us.
That's awesome. I'm so glad we had Ricky on today. That's it for this episode of the Even You podcast. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review so we can spread these episodes out to more people. And don't forget, you can watch these online on YouTube if you want to see the videos of these podcast episodes. That's it for this episode of the Even You podcast. We'll see you next time. But until then,
Go be extraordinary.